All right, let's talk about something that affects countless families across Maharashtra: your rights to your ancestral land. It can feel like this super complicated world of old traditions and confusing legal papers, but don't worry, we're going to break it all down and make it simple. So let's start with the big one. What are your actual rights to your family's land? For so many of us, the answer feels, well, it feels tangled up in old family stories, dusty documents, and laws that just don't seem clear. But figuring this out, it's the absolute first step to claiming what's legally yours. So, here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what ancestral property actually is. Then, we'll take a quick trip through history to see how the laws have changed, and they've changed a lot. After that, we get to the good stuff: how to calculate your exact share. We'll also cover the practical side of getting it registered, and finish up by talking about some key people and ideas you really need to know. Okay, let's get into it. Before you can even think about your share, you've got to understand what you're actually claiming. This is the bedrock of it all: the idea of ancestral property. So ancestral property, or vadvadel arjit milkit, is basically land that's been passed down through the men in the family. We're talking great-grandfather, grandfather, or father, without ever being officially divided by a will. And here's the crucial part. Under the old-school Hindu law, your right to this land wasn't something you were given. It was yours from the moment you were born. You were a co-owner from day one. Now, this is a really important distinction. It means your father wasn't the single, all-powerful owner who could just sell the family land whenever he felt like it. It's better to think of it like a shared family vault. All the co-heirs owned it together, jointly. And that was a huge protection because it meant one person couldn't just sell it off without a really good legal reason and, of course, getting everyone else to agree. But, that traditional system isn't how things work today. The laws have gone through this incredible evolution, which is really a story about the journey towards equal rights for every single person in the family. For literally centuries, it was only men who could be co-heirs. The first little crack in that wall came in 1937, when widows were given a limited share. Then, in 1956, the Hindu Succession Act made widows full owners and gave daughters some rights. But it still wasn't equal. The real earthquake, at least here in Maharashtra, happened in 1994. That's when an amendment finally gave daughters the exact same rights as sons by birth. A principle that was then rolled out across the whole country in 2005. And that right there, that was the whole point. The entire goal of these newer laws was to wipe away that inequality that had been baked into the system for centuries. It was all about making sure a daughter's right to her family's property was just as solid as her brother's. Period. So what does all this legal history mean for the actual piece of land you might inherit? This is where it gets real and where you get that aha moment. Let's see how these changes actually play out for a real family. Okay, let's use an example to make this super clear. Meet Ganpat's family. They have a 2,000 square meters share of ancestral land. Now, Ganpat himself passed away way back in 1960. He left behind his widow, 3 sons, and 1 daughter. Let's see how the old law would have split that property. Right. Under the old system, the math was just messy and totally unequal. First, the land was split between the traditional co-heirs, that's Ganpat and his sons. The daughter? She was completely left out of that first step. Then, only Ganpat's portion was redivided among all his heirs. And the result of this complicated process was pretty shocking. His widow and sons each got 480 square meters, while his daughter was left with just 80. This is exactly the kind of inequality the new laws were designed to fix. But like we said, the law didn't just stay that way. Those game-changing amendments in 1994 and 2005 came along and completely rewrote the rulebook to fix this exact problem. And here it is. This is the big aha moment. The new law just throws out that whole complicated, unfair process. A daughter is now a co-heir from birth, with the same rights as a son. So the division is simple. You take the 2,000 square meters and you divide it equally among the 5 heirs, the widow, the 3 sons, and the daughter. Everybody gets 400 square meters. Simple, fair, and equal. That right there is the massive, real-world power of legal reform. Okay, So you get your rights, you figured out your share. Now what? Well, you have to make it official. Let's walk through the actual process of getting your name on the land records. This whole thing is called varis nond, which just means inheritance registration. It's really just 4 main steps. 1. Get the death certificate of the property owner. 2. You apply to the local village official, the talathi, with that certificate and a sworn statement, an affidavit that lists out every single legal heir. 3. The talathi does their homework, a local inquiry to make sure the list is correct. And finally, after a 15-day notice period, just in case, your names are officially put on the land records, making your ownership legit. All right, to wrap up, if you're going to be a really savvy landowner, there are a couple more key ideas and people in Maharashtra's system that you should probably know about. You're going to hear the word kul a lot. It means tenant. But this isn't just someone renting an apartment. In Maharashtra, because of a powerful principle called land to the tiller, a person who has been legally farming someone else's land for a long time and who isn't a relative or a paid worker can gain incredibly strong rights. Sometimes they can even get ownership. It's a huge deal and something you have to be aware of. So if you run into problems, who do you even talk to? In many cases, the answer is the tahsildar. Think of this person as the boss of the village-level officials, like the talathi. They have real power. They can settle those tricky tenancy or cold disputes, they can grant a legal path to a farm that's otherwise landlocked, and they manage the official dividing of land after a court has made a decision. For a lot of common issues, the tahsildar is the person you need to know. So there you have it, from what ancestral property even is, to the fight for equal rights, and the step-by-step guide to making it official. The law has built this framework to protect what's yours. But here's the bottom line. That protection doesn't do anything by itself. It only kicks in when you decide to take action. You have to be the one to claim your rights. So the real question is, what's your first step going to be?